I never thought that the worst day of my life would turn into the most defining moment I had ever experienced. I never thought that losing everything in a single afternoon, my job, my dignity, my sense of security, would somehow become the very thing that changed not just my life, but the life of one of the most powerful women on the planet. And I never thought that one calm, quiet sentence, 7 words I almost didn't say, would echo so loudly in a boardroom full of silence that it would move a billionaire to tears. So before I tell you how this story ends, I need you to ask yourself something. If someone stripped away everything you had worked for, everything you had sacrificed for, and then stood there waiting to see what you would do next, what would you do? Would you beg? Would you explode? Would you break? I want you to hold on to that question, because everything I'm about to tell you hinges on the answer, and I'll be honest with you. I almost didn't make the right choice. My name is Marcus, and at the time this all happened, I was 34 years old, a single father, and the sole provider for my 7-year-old daughter Lily. Lily was everything to me. After her mother left when Lily was barely 2, just packed a bag one morning and said she couldn't do it anymore. I became both parents overnight. I learned how to braid hair badly, how to make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, how to explain why the sky was blue, and why sometimes grown-ups cry even when nothing is visibly broken. I worked every single day not because I was chasing a dream, but because I had a little girl who needed new shoes and a warm bed and someone who showed up, always, no matter what. I had been working at Harmon Enterprises for 6 years when everything fell apart. Harmon Enterprises was one of those sleek, glass and steel companies that dealt in commercial real estate development. The kind of place where the lobby smelled like expensive cologne, and the coffee was imported from some mountain in Colombia you'd never heard of. I worked in mid-level project management. Not glamorous, not at the top, but I was good at it. I was known for being the calm one. When a project hit a wall, they sent Marcus. When a contractor went sideways or a city permit got delayed, they called Marcus. I wasn't the loudest person in the room, but I was reliable, steady, and for 6 years that steadiness had kept me employed, kept my daughter fed, and kept the lights on in our little rented house on the east side of the city. The CEO of Harmon Enterprises was a woman named Victoria Harmon. She had inherited the company from her father, but let me be very clear, she had not simply coasted on that inheritance. She had tripled the company's revenue in a decade, expanded it into 4 countries, and been featured on the cover of 3 different business magazines. She was sharp, she was ruthless when she needed to be, and she was almost never seen on the regular floors of the office. She operated from the 42nd floor, which most of us called simply the top as if it were a different atmosphere up there, which it essentially was. I had seen Victoria Harmon in person exactly twice in 6 years. Both times, she had walked through a room like a weather system, purposeful, commanding, leaving a certain electricity in the air behind her. So when I got the call on a Tuesday morning in March to report to the 42nd floor, I felt my stomach do something complicated. My manager, Dennis, was the one who called me. He sounded strange on the phone, not warm, not cold, just carefully neutral in a way that made me uneasy. He said there had been a review of recent project allocations and that Ms. Harmon wanted to speak with the project leads personally. I told Lily's after-school program I might be a little late that evening. I straightened my tie in the elevator mirror. I told myself I was fine. I was not fine. The 42nd floor conference room was all glass and dark wood, and a view of the city that made you feel like you were floating. There were 4 other project managers there when I arrived. People I knew, people I respected, and every single one of them looked as unsettled as I felt. We didn't talk much. We sat with our folders and our coffee cups and waited. Victoria Harmon walked in at exactly 10 o'clock with 2 members of her executive team, and a woman I didn't recognize who carried a leather portfolio and wrote things down constantly without ever making eye contact with anyone. Victoria sat at the head of the table, looked at all of us for a long moment, and then said, calmly and without preamble, that following a third-party performance audit, the company was restructuring its mid-level management across 3 divisions. She said the word restructuring the way people say weather, as if it were simply a fact of the universe, not a decision made by human beings in human rooms. Then she went through each of us, one by one, quietly, almost gently. 2 of my colleagues were reassigned to different departments. One was offered a reduced role, and then she got to me. She looked at me directly and said, "Marcus, your position has been eliminated." Just like that. 6 years. Gone. I remember the room going very quiet. I remember the woman with the leather portfolio writing something down. I remember one of my colleagues shifting uncomfortably in his chair, The way you do when something awful is happening to someone else and you're relieved. It isn't you but guilty about that relief. And I remember Victoria Harmon watching me with those precise, unreadable eyes, waiting, as if she were expecting something specific. As if this were a test she already knew the answer to. And here is where I need you to understand something about who I am. The old version of me. The version from 5 years earlier, before Lily, before learning what it meant to be the only person standing between a child and the chaos of the world. That version of me might have said something sharp. Might have pushed back loudly. Might have let the anger out in a way that felt satisfying for about 4 seconds, and then catastrophic for years afterward. But I had spent 7 years learning how to breathe through hard things. How to stay level when everything in me wanted to react. Because when you're the only parent, when there is no one else to hold the household together, you cannot afford to fall apart. You learn to feel the full weight of something and still keep your voice steady. You learn that calm is not weakness. Calm is armor. Calm is strategy. Calm is love in its most disciplined form. So I looked at Victoria Harmon and I took one breath and I said the 7 words that I did not plan, that I did not rehearse, that came from somewhere deeper than strategy or calculation. I said, I hope this is hard for you too. That was it. No anger, no pleading, no threats. Just that. The room went so still I could hear the city 30-something floors below us, muffled and distant like a dream. The woman with the portfolio stopped writing. One of the executives glanced at Victoria, and Victoria Harmon, who I had never seen show anything except competence and composure, blinked. Just once, but it was the kind of blink that means something cracked, even if only for a millisecond, even if only somewhere behind the eyes. She dismissed the rest of the people in the room. All of them. Quietly, efficiently she asked everyone to step out, the executives, the portfolio woman, my colleagues, see. All of them filed out in a slightly bewildered procession. And then it was just the 2 of us, in that glass room with the floating city below, and Victoria Harmon was looking at me with an expression I had no framework for. She asked me to stay. She said, sit back down please Marcus. Now I need to stop right here. Because this is the exact moment everything pivoted. This is where I had to make a decision about what kind of person I was going to be in the next 10 minutes, and those 10 minutes were going to determine the next several years of my life. I want you to think about what you would have done in my seat. A woman who just ended your livelihood just asked you to stay in the room. Do you stay? Do you walk? Do you say something bitter and final and satisfying on your way out the door? Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to drop a comment below and tell me honestly, what would you have done? Because the choice I made surprised even me. I sat back down. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something I was not prepared for. She said, that sentence you just said, I hope this is hard for you too. Why did you say it that way? Why not scream at me? Why not tell me I'm a monster? Why not threaten to call a lawyer? She wasn't being defensive, she was genuinely asking. Like someone trying to understand a language they had never studied. And I told her the truth. I said that screaming wouldn't bring the job back. I said that I had a 7-year-old daughter at home, and that she needed me to be someone she could be proud of. And you can't be that person and also be the person who unravels the moment things go wrong. I said that I didn't assume she had made this decision lightly, and I meant it, not because I wasn't devastated, because I absolutely was, but because I understood from my own life that the hardest decisions are the ones where there is no clean outcome, where someone gets hurt no matter what you choose. I said that I hoped it was hard for her because hard decisions made by people who actually feel their weight are better than easy decisions made by people who feel nothing. And then, because I had nothing left to lose, and because it was simply true, I said, my daughter taught me that. She's 7, and she already knows that how you treat people when you have all the power is who you actually are. Victoria Harmon was quiet for a very long time after that, long enough that I started to wonder if I had said too much. Long enough that I almost filled the silence with something unnecessary, which is a habit I have always had to fight. But I held it. I let the silence be. Then she told me something that reframed everything. She told me that she had been running the company for 11 years, and that 2 years ago she had been advised by a board member she trusted to become more efficient in her personnel decisions, to cut faster, to feel less, to treat the human element of the business as a variable rather than a constant. She said she had been trying to operate that way, and she had grown rich and efficient and completely hollowly miserable. She said she had started this round of cuts 6 months ago and had watched people leave without a word, had seen grown adults shrink in front of her, had watched bitterness and desperation play out in that same conference room again and again, and somewhere in the middle of all of it she had stopped sleeping properly. She said she told herself it was stress. She said she knew it was something else. She said she had included me in today's meeting not because my performance warranted it, but because she had read a note in my file. A note that one of my team members had submitted voluntarily 18 months ago, saying that when their father had died suddenly, I had quietly rearranged the project schedule for 2 weeks so they could grieve without falling behind, and had never mentioned it to management or asked for recognition. She said she wanted to see how someone like that responded when the power dynamic was reversed. When they were the vulnerable one, she said my 7 words gave her the answer she hadn't known she was looking for. I sat across from Victoria Harmon while she, and I am not exaggerating, this is exactly what happened, while she told me she was reversing the decision to eliminate my position, effective immediately. But that wasn't all. She told me she was creating a new role, a senior one, focused on people operations and internal culture, essentially, a position built around the idea that a company that forgets its people eventually forgets its purpose. She said she believed I understood something that her executive team had been losing sight of, and that she needed someone around her who still knew how to feel the weight of a hard decision. She also told me something personal, something that I will share here because it completes the picture. She said she had a daughter too, 16 years old, that they barely spoke, that somewhere in the 11 years of building an empire, she had become someone her daughter didn't know how to reach. She said my sentence, "I hope this is hard for you too," had unlocked something in her, because what she had really needed, for years, was for someone to give her permission to feel the cost of things again. To stop mistaking numbness for strength. The aftermath was not a fairy tale, but it was real and it was good. I took the new role. It was terrifying and demanding and completely unlike anything I had managed before, and I made mistakes in the first 6 months that humbled me profoundly. But I learned fast, and the team I worked with responded to the shift in culture in ways that showed up in measurable results. Retention improved, communication improved, and 3 different departments reported better project outcomes simply because people felt less afraid to raise problems early. Victoria Harmon became someone I genuinely respected. Not because she was powerful, but because she did something rare. She changed. Slowly, imperfectly, with setbacks and awkward moments, she changed. I watched her start to ask different questions in meetings. I watched her stay in a room after a hard decision and not retreat to the elevator immediately. I watched her fly home for her daughter's school performance on a Thursday night when she had a board call Friday morning, because she had decided something had to come first. And Lily, my Lily, who had no idea any of this had happened, who came home that Tuesday evening to find me making dinosaur pancakes for dinner because I needed to do something with my hands and something normal with my heart. Lily asked me why I was making breakfast food for dinner, and I told her it was because sometimes you need to celebrate something, even when you're also a little scared. She accepted this completely, the way 7-year-olds accept things that make emotional sense even without logical explanation. She poured the syrup herself and got it on the table, and neither of us mentioned it, and it was one of the best dinners of my life. What I learned from all of this, and I have turned it over in my mind more times than I can count, is that the moments where we have the least power are the moments that reveal the most about us. Not what we've built, not what we've earned, but who we are when the floor drops out. I had nothing in that room. No leverage, no protection, no plan. All I had was the version of myself that my daughter had spent 7 years, without knowing it, teaching me to be. The version that could feel the full weight of something terrible and still choose to respond with something true instead of something reactive. That is not easy. I will not pretend it is easy, but it is possible. And it matters more than almost anything else I can think of. If this story landed with you, if you've ever been in a room where someone had all the power and you had none, and you had to decide in real time what kind of person you were going to be, like this video, because I want to know you were here. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one, because I have more, and each one is real, and each one is about the moments that quietly change everything. And share your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you would have said in that room. What would your 7 words have been? Would you have stayed when she asked you to sit back down? Tell me everything, because I read every single one. I'll see you all in the next story.